Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt here with life coach Dean McMurray, sitting in for Linda Armstrong, and this is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. Linda's got a bit of a family thing she's got to deal with today, but she'll be back next week, and so we'll miss her, of course. But Dean jumped it from Tuesday up to Friday. We started you on a Friday. We took you to Tuesday. Now you're back to Friday. You must have Friday, whiplash going on or something, right?
Well, you beat me on the draw, like always with your intro music, right? I almost wanted to go like this with my phone and kind of like, hey.
Get the smartphones out.
My light, right?
That's right, yeah.
Maybe we can start a movement. I don't know.
That'd be fun. I'd like that.
Feeling kind of froggy this afternoon, I guess, evidently. So,
well, we're recording on a Friday. It's late afternoon here on the East Coast, and it's just kind of a reminder the weekend's about here, even though it's going to be a bit of an ice stormy weekend. But
yeah, right. And I know this neck of the woods that I'm in, super cold, like polar vortex, like almost 60 below up by the Canadian border. I mean,
ooh,
yeah, and where I am, it's like 36 below right now. So yeah, it's just and we had great weather. Like
that's what my wife calls freeze your nose hairs cold.
Oh, that's probably putting it nice. I call it stupid cold. And I grew up in this, this area. And, I remember, before we get off the subject of weather, but I remember before they changed the wind chill tables back in the 80s, the wind chill value one time was, I think it was around 100 below.
Ouch.
And it's just like, it gets so cold. It's just, it doesn't even matter anymore. It's stupid.
Well, anything below 50 below, anything that's colder than that, you just don't go outside anyway. So, I mean, it almost doesn't even make a difference because you go outside, your instant frostbite. What's the thing called? Frostbite. That's
frostbite. Freeze-bite. It doesn't matter.
Whatever. It's cold, whatever.
You're hurting. You're getting bit by something. But yeah, I remember vehicles stalling on the road. And yeah, that was back in the, early mid 80s, and crazy stuff. Crazy. But anyway, stay warm wherever you are. Doesn't matter where in the world you live, but stay safe. Be aware.
That's what I'm planning to do. It's not going to be that cold here. I mean, it's going to be cold enough, but it's not going to be that cold. But I'm just staying. I'm actually going to do an online presentation on Saturday. So, that's a good way to stay and, stay warm.
There you go. There you go. Nice.
So it's going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had some emails. Like I said, I'm going to save a couple of them for Linda next week, but one of them was sort of a generic one from Barbie. She wrote it to me and Linda, but it was kind of covering a wider range. She said, thank you and Linda for Friday's episode because it encouraged me to study Ho'oponopono this year, as this was like the third or fourth time hearing it mentioned. And I have to admit, we do mention it fairly often on the show. She said it's a very calming practice. So thank you for the reminder. So you're welcome, Barbie.
Oh, yeah. That is a very powerful exercise. And for those folks that have not ever experienced it or tried it, it's a good mantra. It's a good, exercise to do. And so, yeah, I'm glad that Barbie was able to have that experience. So that was awesome.
Me too. Yeah. And you're right. It's a good exercise. Yeah. I love the stories that are associated with it when it was among the first few times tried in what I will call its westernized form, even though it comes from the Pacific originally, but in the form that I can't remember what the gentleman's name is, Dr. somebody or other, who kind of turned it into the Western form where it's basically the four phrase method that Joe Vitale talks about.
I was going to say Dr. Joe Vitale, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a big proponent of that, but
he picked it up from this other guy, and I can't think what the other guy's name is. And the guy drew it from the original. There's a very
Dr.
original,
Ho'opono.
Traditional.
I'm just messing with that. I don't know.
It's a name that's that difficult, but no, that's not it.
Yeah.
But anyway, among those original stories that are really cool is how that originator, whatever his name was, used it in a hospital setting, and it was a mental hospital. It was a mental hospital that had a lot of criminal elements in it because very often judges will sentence criminals with mental illnesses to a criminal mental hospital, and it was in decay. It was falling apart. The staff that were working there were really, really low vibe. They were just very depressed. They were, people were always having their resumes out trying to find another place to go to. The crime rate was high within the facility. I mean, everything was just really, really terrible. And this guy just went through for, I think, a period of a year, just taking each of the different inmate records and walking through the halls and doing the 4-line mantra. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you.
Yeah. And
that's all he did. And within, I think it was a 1 or 2 year period, the entire facility turned around. The inmates started to get released because they were improving enough they could actually be released into the community. And in like a 2 or 3 year period, the entire facility was closed down because there were no more inmates.
Isn't that crazy?
Like, holy cow.
All right. Think what you can do in your own life with that, or, the people that you can help around, your fellow man, woman,
right?
Human around you. It's just cool.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Shows the real power of the what we often call the positive mindset,
right.
Although I kind of avoid that term. The I prefer mindset. I like that better.
Right.
Feeling the stuff that feels good to you and that is high vibe and so forth.
Yeah.
That mindset produces amazing, unexpected results, often not directly related to your own life. Your own life may not necessarily be always experiencing it. It could be somebody else's life who's experiencing it.
Maybe we could refer to it as the power of love for this episode, right?
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, the power of love.
And they're all all in the same, wavelength, right? So, it's I don't know. I'm still flabbergasted by what just simple connections to that vibration, that frequency, even in small doses, can do, and the mountains that it can move, so to speak, and the results that you can see. But it takes the tenacity to stick with it, right?
It does.
You talked about this doctor walking through the halls in a however long period, 1, 2 year, and he could have said, you know what, it's not doing nothing, don't see any results. All too often, I think we give up before we, I think what Napoleon Hill talked about is, 3 feet from gold, right?
Yeah.
And, I think a lot of times we're giving up just before we're seeing the results, or the results that we're trying to attract to us. And so, hats off to the doctor that did that. And I think that just lends credence to what you can do when you're connecting with, vibrations of that caliber. I think that's just awesome.
No doubt about it. And I like the idea that you're calling it the power of love for a couple of reasons, right? Because as you pointed out to me before we started the podcast today, we are recording this 2 days before Valentine's Day. I mean, what better day to associate with the power of love, right?
Power of love. And it should be every day. Shouldn't just be one day out of the calendar year, right?
Right. But it's good to have a day that we actually focus on it in a big way. It's kind of a reminder.
It brings
really
everybody's awareness, right? Yeah.
Which is a good thing.
And I know we were talking before we came live about kind of diving in maybe a little bit later on Valentine's Day and how many emotions that can evoke, right? The people that feel sadness because their love, whether it's a family member, maybe their soulmate or whomever is now in spirit. Or maybe it's somebody, and you talked about this, Walt, was, maybe they haven't been in a relationship and they're feeling the lack and looking at everybody else around them, the, keeping up with the Johnson mentality of, I don't have a date, or I don't have somebody to show me that love or to reciprocate that. And, sitting in a really commercialized day, right? And saying, where's my chocolates? Where's my, or whatever you do, and feeling lack, but realizing and completely forgetting that, what do we need? And it brings up a big question. Do we need somebody outside of ourselves to show us love?
Oh boy, you just
But
gave me the absolute perfect segue. I can't begin to tell you how good of a
see, that's why
segue
you
this
asked
is.
me on. See,
See, I
I'm
knew
tuning
it.
into your mind, Walt. Just hold
Yeah,
still. I'm focusing. Ooh,
this
there we
guy is
go.
not the military medium for nothing. Let me tell you.
But right,
But
do we need others to give us
let
a
me tell you what I
validation
was
of
referring.
love?
So let me tell you what I was referring to because I
Yeah,
picked up something. This is on one of the Facebook LOA groups.
yeah,
This is a very typical kind of thing. You see this question a lot. Although this
right,
particular take, you don't see it quite as often because you don't normally hear the after story. This is what
right.
this is referring to as the after story. But it's the very common question of I'm trying to manifest an SP, a specific person or a special
Mm-hmm,
person.
mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And this person did it, but with an unexpected result. So let me read to you what she
Ooh.
said. She said, I manifested my SP, and guess what? I am still unhappy. He wants to live with me and start a family, which is great, but I'm feeling more anxious than ever. I don't know if it's because I've been single for almost 2 years and now I have to adjust to being with someone, or if
Mm,
he's not compatible, or if I'm afraid of moving forward, maybe afraid of growth and change. I am so confused and constantly worried. I used to pray for him, and now I am the one telling him I need more time. I mean, isn't it weird? It's actually funny. And if it wasn't an important decision about my future and my life, I would laugh. Anyone else been through something like this? How do I figure out what I'm feeling and what I'm afraid of? So there's
mm.
another way that people can be
Sure.
frustrated by what's going on with, as we approach the Valentine's
Right.
Day holiday. So
Mm.
what's your take? What do you think?
And well, I think it could be a couple, you could really interpret it a couple ways. One, you're very steadfast in your ways over the years of being single. I get
Mhm.
that, right? I think we can all relate at some point, unless you've been in a relationship since, you were knee high to a grasshopper. But the thing that I would share is that, um, being really, to be really happy in a dual relationship, it is Dean's not only personal but intuitive, I guess, guidance that we need to be good and happy with ourselves. To be
Mhm.
in a place that's saying, you know what, I would love to be in a committed, giving and receiving equal partnership with somebody that I enjoy spending time with. But at the same time, if I'm not happy with Dean, guess what? I'm not going to be happy with Jim, Josie, Janny, what, I don't care what your name is or who you are. And it doesn't matter if it's romantic or not, you're not going to be happy because there's still going to be lack. There's still going to be something missing. And guess what? It's at home plate. And saying because you're not happy with yourself.
Yeah.
And so when a lot of people say when they get out of a in this very typical, right? Somebody breaks up, what do? They get right back on that horse, and you get right
Hmm.
back out there, and then they get in a what they consider a rebound situation, right? They just, they find somebody that might date a little bit, or maybe they don't even date. Maybe they just have a one night stand, whatever the case is, whatever
Mm.
their lifestyle choice, right? But it doesn't last long is the
Right.
answer, and they might feel all the feels for a while, but then it's very lacking. And then it's just like trails off again. And then they're back in that same boat of saying, I don't feel supported. I don't feel loved. I don't feel whole, whatever those labels are. But if we were to back the bus up right after that breakup, or maybe even before, if we're fortunate enough, and go, let me start with me. And what is it about me that I need to love more? What is it about me and Walt, you talked about this exercise several times in our previous shows, is, that mirror exercise, right? I love
Right.
you. And saying
Absolutely.
that to yourself until you really believe it when you go, you see yourself in the mirror and you go, I love you. And you should be able to go, oh, shucks, you too, and be like, feel your love, right? And
Play
saying,
with it. Yeah.
yeah, and so when you love yourself, what happens? It's common sense. You're more confident. You're exuding all the vibe that people want to be around, not only your romantic partners, but business partners. You're gonna, and
Hmm.
there's actually Napoleon Hill. We were just talking about it. Napoleon Hill, but there's a chapter in Think and Grow Rich. If anybody's ever read it, there's a chapter about leveraging sexuality.
That's true.
Yeah, it is. And
Yeah.
talking about, it's not about dressing slinky. I mean,
Nope.
I get it, sex sells and all that great stuff, but that's visual. We're talking about the vibe of somebody that's confident and exudes that the opposite sex, or somebody that attracts maybe the same sex or whatever, doesn't matter, but sexuality. And talking about how they use that to leverage. But guess what? Ain't going to be no gas in the tank if you don't love yourself first.
That's right.
And
Exactly
starting
right.
the baby steps, if you think of building the home, start with the firm foundation of saying, do you love yourself first? And Walt, I know on our Tuesday show, I think I shared with you before, and the listeners, that when my wife and I first before we were engaged and got married, one of the things that I asked her when we were dating, and I wasn't even open to my spirituality or anything, and maybe I was divinely guided, but I asked her, I said, which, thinking back, it's kind of totally out of character, but for me, but I said, are you happy with you? Because I didn't want somebody, quite honestly, I think, let's just be honest. I think we've all had people in our lives, I don't care who you are, that have been broken. And we've all had people in our lives that we've tried to fix. We've all had people in our life at some level, right? And, and when you meet the person that you're like, God, I really like this person and I really want to take, but it's just, you want to make sure that, or at least I did, that, hey, are you happy with you? Because I can't do that for you. I mean, I can provide an external, presence and, part, but I can't.
You can't do it for them.
I can't make you happy in the way you can.
Right.
And, when she said yes, and then you can kind of tell, right?
Oh, it's pretty obvious.
It's
it doesn't
pretty
take
obvious.
a whole.
People
You don't have to be
that-
a psychic in order to pick that one
And
up.
that's right. Blind psychic could tell you that, right? And to the blind psychics, I'm sorry, but I just But the thing that I would share is again, going back to the basics, the building blocks of, if you don't love yourself first, really, in my opinion, nothing else matters, because it is just external layers upon that. So do you really need somebody else to make you feel whole or to love you in a day?
That's
Valentine?
a big warning sign right there. That's a big red flag. And a lot of people overlook that one.
It's a, I'm sure it's $1 billion business, Hallmark,
Sure.
what's a chocolate, the little chalky candies that say, I love you. And what's interesting?
Oh, the Hershey's, the kisses.
Oh, no, the little nasty candies, the hard ones.
Oh, those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
with the stamps on it. But what's interesting to me, Walt? Everything is in Valentine's, for the commercialization is marketed to, like, from you to somebody else. It's not you to you. And I get it. Can you buy yourself flowers? Yep. Can you buy yourself a card and chocolate? Yep. If you want to do that, you take yourself out to dinner. Some people do that, and that's cool. But it's interesting because there's an aspect of marketing on that other individual to make them feel good. And if they don't, and there's some people that actually feel that if their significant other, whoever that is, does not do something specific for that day, oh, holy hell, like, oh my God, we didn't do anything for Valentine's Day, and I won't lie, having kids and everything with the family, we do a little something, but it's not grandiose. But I won't lie either. Like, when I was dating my wife, of course I tried to woo her with, all the flowers and, kind of going on my way. But the thing I would share is, at the end of the day, I know that there was something within me that was saying, hey, you got to be good with you first.
I agree.
Because it doesn't matter all the chocolates and all the flowers and all the romantic dinners and whatever. are not, it's only going to go so far, and then it's going to, it's like a
In
tank of
fact,
gas. You got to
in fact,
continue.
I would add two things to it because I think you're
Absolutely.
spot on, right on the money. The first thing I would add is a reminder of what Abraham Hicks often says: you always take yourself with you.
Mm.
So if you leave, whether it be a job, a relationship,
Mhm.
it could be anything that you leave, you take yourself with you.
Yeah.
And that's why we end up repeating. They talk, what did you call it? You were right. There was a term that they use about being on the rebound or something like that. But
Yeah.
what it really is all about is you're bringing yourself with you. So you're recreating the same
Right.
situation
Same
you had
scenario.
before, but with a different person.
Right.
And so until you address that, and you were exactly right, the way to address that is by increasing self-love. Until you address that, you're going to continue to have the same experiences over and over again. That's one of the things I had to learn. More precisely, what I had to learn was that I was sabotaging myself because of my lack of self-love. Not that I didn't love myself. This is something that to me is a really important point. Everybody loves themselves. Even the so-called broken people, I actually don't think there's anybody who's broken, but even the so-called broken people love
Right.
themselves. We must not lose sight of that fact. You cannot be alive without loving yourself. It is not possible to do.
Right.
So
Right.
everybody loves themselves to a degree. The question is, how much do you love yourself? And how often do you love yourself? How
Mm.
often are you feeding? How often are you basically replenishing your own love supply, your own energy supply?
Mm.
Because you can't give love to somebody else if you don't have enough to give. That's one of
Right.
the things that I think is a real misnomer or misunderstood point among large numbers of people. Often, it can be often from religious viewpoints or just from self-help viewpoints and
Right.
so forth.
Right.
That the best thing you can always do is to give love to somebody else. That is true to a point, but it overlooks the key fact. You have to have the love to give first. If
Mm.
you don't have enough love for yourself, all you're going to do is deplete yourself by giving
Well,
love to
well,
somebody else in that
what would be
circumstance. You
the counter to somebody saying, but Walt, I never learned how to love myself. I grew up in a home that I was never shown love.
Mhm.
Maybe I was very abused. It was very nasty childhood. And then growing
Mhm.
up, I never had any long-term
Sure.
relationships. And I just go from basically feeling like I go from broken home to broken home to broken home. And I never really learned how to love in it, maybe in a healthy way or in a way that is healthy for me. What would be something that you would say to those folks that
Mhm.
never learned how to love, using, I'll say that excuse of, I never learned how to love?
My first thing I would say is, I've got good news for you. You're no different from everybody else. Everybody's in the exact same boat. They may not have
Right.
experienced what you experienced,
Right.
and clearly that person has gone through some pretty horrific stuff.
Yeah.
They may not have experienced the horrors that you experienced, but everybody's in the same boat because we as a culture, and I don't mean just here in the United States, I mean
Right.
globally, our
Mm.
global culture or cultures they fail to be oriented toward building self-love. There's
Right.
a lot about giving love in many cultures. There's a lot about being happy in some
Right.
cultures. There's very little about building self-love.
Why do you
And
think that is?
it's not a surprise that you don't have experience
Right.
building self-love. You're not alone in that. I mean, this is I've talked before the last few weeks about how I'm preparing to be a public speaker. This is going to be
Right.
my topics,
Yeah.
giving self
Right.
or building self-love. And one of the key points that I am really going to be hammering home is that I wasn't taught I wasn't even taught the importance of
Right.
self-love when I was
Right.
growing up. It wasn't even a topic. And I wasn't abused when I was growing
Right.
up. I
But do you,
actually grew up in a pretty good home, but
right.
I wasn't, and nobody I've ever talked to. I brought this topic up with numerous people, including people who are very much conscious creators. None of us have ever remembered in any
Right.
time when we were growing up that we were taught how and when to increase self-love. So you're not alone in that. This is not making you something
Right.
abnormal
Why,
because you
why,
went through a
why,
horrific experience.
why do you think that is? Why do you feel that, you know, why do you think that, you know, there wasn't somebody talking about, I
Because they
get
didn't
it. If
know.
you, they didn't
They
know.
didn't know. I can't recall any major teachings from religions, from philosophers, I can't recall any of them emphasizing the importance of building self-love. In a few cases, I can think of them pointing to don't go too far with self-love, like shooting you down, be more meek, be more in humility and so forth. Yeah. But that's about the only kind of teaching I can think of, and I've studied quite a bit. I mean, I didn't actually major in religion or comparative philosophy, but I might as well have, because I took as many of those courses as I did with my major. So I should have been. I just just never actually did. But none of them. Nobody ever talks about this. This is something that's been lacking in human cultures for millennia. Not just generations, millennia. It's been a long, long time. And I just think it's because we just weren't aware of it. We didn't make the connection. In the last 50 years or so, our psychologists, particularly the positive psychologists, have been recognizing the important role that self-love plays. And so that to me is a really encouraging sign. But that's why people haven't learned about it, because it wasn't part of the culture.
Do you think that culture expanded or blossomed in the 60s and kind of more with the I don't want to say the free love movement, but
it had an influence.
Conscious awareness,
yeah, all of that. I mean, well, the 60s was a tumultuous time, and today is a tumultuous time. There's a certain parallel there. And I mean, anytime that you have tumult of some kind, upset, new stuff's going to come in, and the ideas about different ways of looking at love are going to come up, and that's part of what happened in the 60s. So yes, I think that started it in some ways. I think also what came out of the 60s was a little bit, I don't want to really dump on it, but let's just say it kind of got off track a few times. And so a lot of what was hoped for among those who were involved directly in 60s type stuff didn't quite come to pass the way they were hoping it would. But that's kind of normal.
To the Aquarius and all that.
Yeah, I mean, well, actually, I'm not into astrology, but I've learned that we are currently in the age of Aquarius. I thought we'd already passed it, but we actually just got here. So I was like, oh, good, I didn't miss it.
Time, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Oh, okay, we made it. Cool.
Right. Well, so, like everything old eventually will come new again. I mean, look, bell bottoms and big collars came back.
That's true.
They went through the 70s and into the 80s. I mean, good Lord, right? So
that's true. Yeah. But the good news is, I mean, we can invent it at any time. So even if you've been through horrific stuff in your life and you never really were trained, and you don't really know how to begin loving yourself, guess what? You already do. You already know how. If you've ever done anything for yourself, for any reason whatsoever, you loved yourself in that moment. That's part of what loving yourself is doing stuff. It's pampering yourself. It's taking care of yourself.
It's kind of serendipitous too. It's kind of serendipitous too, Walt, that you started this episode out with the Ho'oponopono piece, because I mean, that would be a great one if somebody is like, where do I even start? Or I'm so confused. Hey, just sit down and just breathe.
It's a great point. Because usually that's used for helping others, like the story of the hospital. But this came up in a conversation I had with somebody on Facebook. It works just as well when you're doing it for yourself. It's perfectly acceptable and perfectly effective to use it in that context. So absolutely, Ho'oponopono is a great way to start. Really, there is no bad way to start. The only way I guess if there's one bad way to start, it's to just beat on yourself, to criticize it. Well, there's that too.
Right.
Yeah. But just being, if chances are, if you've been through what your hypothetical person has been through, probably pretty self-critical. Right. So the worst thing to do is just keep going with the self-criticism. Just tear yourself down constantly. And that's going to just wear away at you over time. That's going to lead to early death, really.
Well, and I think there's a lot of us and I think almost every one of us at some point in our lives have been overcritical of ourselves, right? We're too fat, we're too thin, we're not muscular enough, we're not, this, or we're not that, I could have done better on the test, it goes on and on and on, where, the old adage of we are our own worst enemy, but, talk at times. And, you talk about the self-love piece, and the more you love yourself, the quieter that voice gets. And the more your confidence goes up, right? And be like,
Absolutely.
you know what, you know what, Dean? Maybe this is internal dialogue. You know what, Dean? Even though you've never done that, you know what? I think we're good to go as far as giving that a college try. Let's go ahead and give that a try. And you know, what's the worst that's going to happen? We're going to learn. If it doesn't go the way we want, that's going to be a learning event. And so, or whatever, you know, looking at things in a positive manner. So diminish the negative self-talk and increase the empowering self-talk. And so when the vibration of love, self-love starts to increase, it's like you're switching gas tanks, right? And it's what engine are you feeding? And if you start starving out the nasty, you know, over here, the empowerment piece comes back and be like, you know what? I am pretty badass. You know, kind of the Joey Tribbiani, how you doing in the mirror, right? So it's like,
right.
you know, but like we said, when you start getting that confidence and you start feeling good about you, that shows through. Like you show up different, and you might not even know it, and it'd be like, oh my God, how come all these girls or guys or who? It's because they feel your confidence. And even in the business world, right? God, I really like their confidence. They came in, they really felt good. You know, we've all met people that are not confident with themselves.
By the way, there's a key point I want to throw in here too that goes perfectly with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Being confident does not mean you got everything together.
No.
In fact, I could tell you a great story about a guy I used to know. We were friends for a relatively short period of time, 3 or 4 years maybe. And then he ended up moving quite far away. He went to New Orleans, actually, and never saw him again. And quite honestly, I didn't want to see him again, as you'll find out in a moment. But the thing that was amazing about this guy was I was single at the time. He was single. He loved being single, actually. And he was a woman magnet. I mean, literally, the two of us would walk into a bar. I'd be ignored. Within 5 minutes, 2 or 3 women had come over and handed them pieces of paper with their phone numbers on them. And he wasn't doing anything. He was just sitting there. And I'm thinking, how does he do this? I clearly had no idea how any of that worked. How did he do this? Well, he was extremely self-confident. In that sense, he was very much self-loving. Now, here's the interesting part. He was terrible at relationships. So I actually was best man at his wedding for a marriage that lasted 6 months.
Oh man.
Because he couldn't hold the relationship together.
Sure.
So he was great. He was totally self-confident in terms of starting the relationship, getting the partners to come to him, so forth. But he had no clue whatsoever how to maintain the relationship. Proving you don't have to have it all together in order to be self-confident.
Right.
Now, do I recommend that route? No, I don't recommend that route. But it just goes to show you don't have to be perfect.
Right.
In order to build your self-love up, in order to get people coming into your life, you don't have to be perfect at all. And so you can let go of that perfection requirement. It actually gets in the way, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
The other thing I wanted to share too, there was one other thing, and this was my own personal story about what happened to me, because when I came of age, so to speak, I went to college like many people do. And from that point on, it was just one frustration after another, one failed relationship after another. Literally, Dean, from the point where I was in college to when I met my wife at age 41, or actually more precisely about 2 months before I met my wife, I had the longest relationship I had ever had was 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, let me tell you, my mental state by the time I was in my 40s was terrible. I mean, I was in the worst place you could possibly be in. And I had been in that place for a long time. And I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't understand why I was having so much failure. Now, self-love played a big role in it. I didn't understand that at the time either.
Right.
But there was a secondary thing that went along with it. And I know now for a fact, if I had known the importance of building up my self-love, and if I had actually built it up, it would have taken care of the other issue. And it probably would have done it in a way that I didn't even realize it was happening. Right. But that didn't happen. So this other issue kind of hung around. And the other issue was, deep down, this is going to sound crazy, deep down, I believed that if I met a new woman, it was not going to work out before I even talked to her.
Hmm.
I just had this deep-seated belief that no one could possibly want me. Now, if you had asked me that consciously during that time period, I would have said, no, that's not true, because I really didn't think it was true.
Right.
But there was that little sub pattern going on in the back of my head. And I didn't realize that was me. I had been the one who had built that up over time. And that pattern kept saying, well, you're not good enough for her. She's way out of your league. Right. Just, it was that kind of thing over and over and over again. And of course, that became my experience. Law of attraction, right? What you focus your attention on. I didn't intend to consciously, but I was focusing my attention on the fact that I believed I could not attract a woman into my life and have it work out. And so I did. And then you know what finally changed for me?
What's that?
I quit. I threw in the towel. I said, I give up. This is too painful. I just gone through the latest non-relationship relationship. And let me tell you, it was exceedingly painful. It was just horribly painful.
I was going to say, with the title of non-relationship relationship, it sounds complicated.
Oh, that would be giving it a nice aura, actually. It was bad. Sure. And I came through that, and I was just so devastated. I said, I give up. I'm going to have to remain a bachelor for the rest of my life.
Right.
I quit relationships. I'm not going to have anything more to do with women. I'm done. I throw in the towel. And a month later, I got a phone call from a mutual friend. I was involved in swing dancing at that point in time. And she was in that community. She says, I have a friend who wants to meet you. Can I give you her phone number? And I said, absolutely not. I threw in the towel. I'm done with relationships. And she knew the person who I'd been in that non-relationship relationship situation. She knew that person. And she said, well, it's because of her. I said, yeah, well, that's like the latest one in the series over the last 20 years, but yeah, I'm done. She says, no. Now, fortunately, my friend was also a psychotherapist. So she kind of knew how to handle this. So she said, don't give up based on that. Just don't do anything else. Just give her a call. Just don't do anything else. Just give her a call. Don't try to make a date. Just give her a call. And she talked me into it. I said, oh, all right. So I took the phone number, found out that she was available on Wednesday, so gave her a call. And it went pretty well. It lasted about 2 hours. We had a good conversation. But hey, I'd been here before. I wasn't going to fall for that one that easy. So we signed off nice, and didn't promise I was going to call her back or anything like that. And then the following Wednesday came up, like, well, that went pretty well. All right, let's give it a try one more time. Called again, another 2-hour phone call. That one worked even better. And I said, well, I'm probably going to regret this, but all right, let's try once more next week. Let's see what happens. So following Wednesday, once again, gave her a call. Once again, 2 hours on the call. And we're having a great time every time we're talking. I'm thinking to myself, okay, so what's wrong with this woman? But something was hooking me in. And so I said, well, let's meet. And so we arranged to meet. And we lived at that time about 3 miles away. Interestingly enough, we both lived in condos up on hills. If we had stood outside of our condos, we could have seen each other 3 miles away.
Oh, interesting.
But of course of course we never did that. But we met halfway in between at this restaurant that I'd been to once and she had never been to before. And they had terrible food, really, really bad. but we met there. And this woman shows up and she's wearing this really beat up straw hat that she thought of as quirky and fun. I thought just made her look like a hick. And for the entire time that we're sitting down together, she is refusing to look at me. And I'm just feeling smaller and smaller and smaller, and she's just not looking at. Now, what I know in hindsight is that she was terrified of making eye contact with me. She had her own stuff that she was dealing with.
Sure.
And so the first date, let's just say, didn't go very well. And I did not do the guy thing. I did not say I'd call you and then not call you. I just didn't say anything at all. I was
wow.
I don't want to have anything to do with this. I can't handle this.
Oh, wow.
Well, interestingly enough, my friend who had introduced us, her birthday and my birthday and another woman's birthday, the three of us had our birthdays within like 3 or 4 days of each other. And this was 2 days before my birthday. And she was having a party for the three of us with a bunch of our friends, sort of a joint birthday party that night. So I went to the birthday party. And she said, so how'd it go? And I said, oh, don't ask. And so my friend Deborah says, well, you are going to give it the 3-date rule, right? And I said hesitantly, oh no, what's that? And she said, well, that's where you give it 3 dates before you make a decision. I said, oh, do I really have to? But again, she's a good therapist. She talked me into it. So I called back, and Louise and I met for a second time. And the second date went a lot better. Third date went even better than that. And a month later, we were together. And the only way that could possibly have happened was because during that period of time, about 1 month, where I had just given up entirely, I had, on some level, in some way that I still to this day don't quite understand how I did it, I had let go of the idea that a woman could want me, could not want me, rather, would have no interest in me. I'd let go of that somehow. And that gave me just enough self-love and self-confidence to be even more attractive and to allow the relationship to play out with some help, very good help from a friend who knew exactly what I was dealing with and kind of pushed me through it, you know. But it really shows, my experience really shows. Now, of course, Louise and I have been together for, what is it now, 21, it'll be 22 years in May that we met.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, so, you know, we broke the 2-week record. But
I think a little bit, yeah.
A little bit, yeah. But it really shows how important it is to build that self-love up. And at the time, I didn't understand the importance of building up self-love. So it's not like I did this major effort. It was a small change that I made, basically because I threw in the towel. I just basically let go of a really low energy, so I flew it up to an okay energy, and that was enough. So it's not like you have to do a whole lot of work on yourself before you start to see results. Now, do I recommend that you do continue to do a lot of work? Yeah. You talked about that voice that goes on in the back of the head. Do the mirror exercise for 30 days. It goes away entirely. So that's just one more advantage to doing it. There are a whole bunch of good reasons for building up the self-love on a regular basis. But my point is, it doesn't take a lot. It just takes a little bit of movement, and then all of a sudden things start to happen. And not just in your love life either. It happens in every aspect of your life. So yeah, this self-love thing is a big deal, really big deal.
Well, right. And like you said, it can really affect every aspect and facet of your life. It's not just the romantic aspect. It can be business, it can be physical, it can be whatever, right? Your mental and physical health, it can be everything. It's crazy. But when we strip away all the labels, when we take, it's all energy.
It is.
And so when you're dealing with and connecting with the high vibration of that, and you're truly getting through what I call all the BS, because at first you're not going to believe it. When you're saying, I love you, you're not going to believe it. But after a while, something magical happens. And all of a sudden you start kind of like, I think I do love myself. It's like you start believing it. Right.
Or you're going to be like me. When I started off, the first time I was like, I love you. Oh God, I can't do this.
I thought you were going to say you told yourself off. Get the hell out of here.
I came close to that, actually.
Throw yourself up.
Let's just say, like you said, I certainly didn't believe a word coming out of my own mouth. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, and I think we've all been there, Walt. I think we've, it's like, oh my God, I feel like such a fraud sitting here. Like, how can I say that I love myself when I know at my core that I'm still broken? How can I say that or do this? And I think we've all had an aspect of this. How can I do this or say this when I know there's a big part over here that's still broken or I'm continually working on? But, what I've chosen to, if that ever kind of tries to pop its head up, I always go, you know what? if I'm still breathing, I'm still a work in progress. And I will never be done working on me until I take my last breath.
That's true.
So, if you're breathing, you still got stuff. You still got baggage, but it doesn't have to be limiting. It doesn't have to hold you back. And I think that's the thing. And the biggest thing, I know that, we could talk all day on this, but one of the things is when we have days such as Valentine's Day coming up, right? Or another good one, Mother's Day, Father's Day, things that single people out. And because it invokes a lot of emotions, like we'll just take Mother's Day, for example, because I believe that's the next one coming up. is saying, oh my God, how could you have a commercialized thing about Mother's Day? I lost my children in an accident, or I miscarried. Every time I think about this day, I go back to that. Or I'm unable to have children. Or, or maybe somebody's adopted. Oh my God, my mom gave me up. She didn't love me. How could you have something celebrating mothers? Or, so the list goes on and on and on and on. And really what it gets back to is love, self-love. And when you're able to love yourself unconditionally, then you just turn that fire hose back out amongst the masses. And, it's, just emitting that love everywhere else. And it's just like,
well, that's why it's so important to build up that love within yourself. Because what happens is it's not like we have unlimited need for love. We feel that way, especially if we find somebody else who, like you said, fills you in, fills the gaps and so forth. But really we don't have this unlimited need for love. What we have is a need for some amount, X amount. I mean, it's going to be different for everybody what X is, but there's always that X amount. But it's not an unlimited amount, it's a finite amount. And above that amount, that's where you have love to give. That's where love to give comes from. So, I mean, before I was talking about how you got to have the love to give, that's where you get it from. You get it from building up the self-love, and then you kind of exceed that threshold. And now all of a sudden, and it's not like you have to do anything about it. It's not like you have to plan, okay, once I get to that threshold, then I'm going to start giving love. No, you don't have to do that. All you have to do is just get to the threshold. The love starts going out all by itself.
Right.
Not like you have to plan it. You don't have to, I'm going to go love somebody today. You don't have to do that. It just goes out. And that's where the whole self-confidence thing comes in.
Right.
That's why it is that there are certain people who just seem sexy. There are some people who just seem attractive. It's because they have a threshold of love that they need. And for whatever reason, they're able to fill in that need.
Right.
And then there's a leftover, and that's the spillover. That's what you're sensing.
Right.
So in that sense, we're all psychics. We're all picking up on that.
Well, we absolutely.
Maybe it's the pheromones. I don't know. But,
maybe they find the secret sauce and rub on themselves.
Yeah, right.
Deer glands.
Deer glands.
Now we're getting weird. I don't know.
Okay.
But the thing
I won't even ask you where the deer glands came from. I mean, is that like out of your secret life or something?
Actually, where the deer glands come from, because I grew up hunting. And so with does, when they're in rut, so urine, I don't want to get gross. We're certainly not going to, but one of the things is the glands are in the back legs. And so when does, and bucks are in rut, of course, there's glands by the back legs, and where they, rub them or whatever, secrete, different things. And of course, mix it with their fluids. And, so they can, when the bucks are in rut, and they know which females are and procreate and all that great stuff. But what I'm sharing, I guess that's a reason that I went to the glands, like somebody, because I remember my brother always kind of, we were kind of crazy. And my brother would always like throw a doe leg at me or something and be like, here, rub that behind your ear and you'll get the bucks to come in. And they'd be like, you never do that for $2 again. And that was the joke. That was a joke. Sorry.
You need a snare drum. Where is it?
I know. I'll stay to my day job. I won't, the comedian psychic. No, I don't think that has a good ring.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I would say, the military medium works much better.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. We'll just stay with that. But, the thing that I was going to share, I guess on a serious note, Walt, was, you talk about self-love. One of the things that I would also share, because you said that, we really only need just a finite amount. It's like a sprinkling of love, from others to fill in the gaps. Right. But the other piece is really people are, at the end of the day, they're just hoping to be seen at some level.
Yes.
Like, see me. I want you to see me. And because so many times we see each other physically, like I saw you pass in the street or whatever, but we just, pass by in a sense, and we don't see each other to the soul level. And we talked about this too, it's interesting. We go back to our previous conversations, but we talked about, you did, kind of when you were talking about the mirror exercise, but talking about if you've, and it's the most uncomfortable exercise I think I've ever done. But if you've ever had to sit face to face with somebody, look in each other's eyes, and you don't say anything, and sometimes you hold hands, sometimes not, but really look, like not, beyond the color of the eye, and like, taking in like the doorway to the soul, so to speak. And really see somebody, and you feel so naked, not like without clothes, but like there's nowhere to hide.
There's a vulnerability to it.
Yeah. And it is really, it is like when you first do it, it's just like, it's like, it's just uncomfortable. But then when you get more used to it, it's like, here I am, I'm over here, it's
right.
Hey, how you doing? And
it's a fun party exercise for if you have a group of people who've never done it before. You pair people off, preferably people who are not already involved with each other, people who don't have that kind of connection, and you pair them off, and then you see who can hold out the longest before they burst into laughter. Right. Because that is the common reflex. When you're engaged in that activity, one person is gazing longingly into the other person's eyes, lovingly, and the other person is trying to hold back from laughing. And in most cases, it's like 10 to 15 seconds. That's about the best most people can do. Some people can hang out for like a half minute to a minute, but they're pretty rare.
Right.
Yeah. Right. It's an interesting thing. And it's for the reason that you described, because there's that lack of comfort of, oh my God, I'm being seen for who I really am.
Right. Yeah. With your whole soul hanging out in front of everybody. I mean, good Lord. But yeah,
don't you have any sense of decency?
I mean, jeez. Don't they have loincloths or what's going on? But yeah, it's like,
it's kind of a funny way though to touch on something that actually is a really important point.
It is.
There's 2 points, I think. There's the point you want to bring in and the point I want to bring in. So let's do both of them. So the one I want to bring in is tied to the idea of building self-love. There is a second piece that if you combine the two together, it makes you unstoppable. And that second piece is your social connectedness. And by social connectedness, I don't mean how many people do you know. I mean, how many deep relationships do you have with friends, people that you feel comfortable going into the tough stuff about and so forth. Because the depth of your social connectedness, positive psychologists have already identified this. It's a 0.7 factor, which sounds like nothing, but it's actually a really, really big factor. It's twice the power of the likelihood that you'll get cancer if you smoke cigarettes. I mean, it's that strong of a correlation. That's just on the social connectedness piece. If you take the social connectedness in a deep kind of social connectedness and tie it to building self-love, doing both at the same time, you will get everything you want in life. There is nothing you will fail to attract. And all those little resistances and the blocks that we put up and so forth, they melt away when you combine those two factors together. Because now, not only are you building yourself up, but on those occasions, like where I was meeting Louise for the first time and it wasn't working well, I had my friend Deborah to talk to. And Deborah was willing to help me, get through it. That combination is a winning combination. You can't be defeated if you have both of those things going. So I just want to make sure I got that out there.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think that's an important aspect to bring in as well. So, yeah. So all those elements, and of course, I was just bringing up the aspect of being seen kind of at that soul level, right? But, talking about, I think, combined together, making this, I don't know what you want to say, maybe like could we call it the soul stew? Could we call it I don't know what you call it, but whatever it is that combines together, but all these key, elements, just bringing a tremendous powerhouse of energy when they're combined. But it starts with a simple step.
It does.
In any direction and everything.
The nice thing is, even if you go in the wrong direction, you'll get a signal.
Well, even if you're going, and really, is there any wrong direction?
Not really.
When we look at it, it's a direction, it's movement. So to get energy moving, because we don't want energy stagnant, we want it in movement, right? Yes. And so even if it's maybe initially away from the direction of your goals, and dreams, eventually we understand that by default, eventually you might take the long way around, but eventually it, the law of, energy and return and everything tells us that, it's going to take a little bit longer, but you're going to get back to the point where you wanted to be before. But you got a little bit different journey ahead of you by going the direction you're going.
And the good news is, just by taking steps, like you said, of any kind,
right?
We certainly recommend stuff that builds up your self-love, but whatever steps you take, you are, like you said, you're moving energy. The only thing that you can really do that fails is to not move energy.
Right.
You just kind of be the couch potato who just sits there and dwells on the fact that nothing's going right, which people do. I mean, that's where depression comes from.
I know they do.
That's where anxiety comes from. That's where worry comes from.
Right.
And it's a very serious problem. It's one of the reasons why I've been getting ready to do my talks, and I'm reaching out now to colleges and universities, because, I mean, my God, Dean, I did some research on it as I was, getting ready to do this. And I took a look at the 2019 National College Health Assessment, which is done every year, but this was the 2019 report. And when I added up the data, they have lots of data points that they reported. I added up the data. 98.4% of all college students experienced moderate to severe stress. Sure. 98.4%.
Yep.
I mean, this is like epidemic proportions. This makes COVID look weak by comparison,
Right.
And it's a really strong indicator that this is a big, big deal that really needs to be addressed. It's one of the reasons why I want to do this public speaking to the colleges. But it also means that, first of all, you're not alone if you're in a place of depression, if you're in a place of anxiety or worry. And second of all, this is the big message we hope you're taking away from this. No matter how bad it is, it can start getting better right now.
Right.
All you got to do is just get that energy moving in some way.
Right.
Mirror exercises are a great way. If that's too much, do something else. Do something just for yourself. Go out for an ice cream. Take a walk. Whatever it is you enjoy.
Routine. Yeah.
I mean, Cindy Chavez says one of the best things you can do is rearrange your furniture. It's a great point. Yep. Just by changing your environment around, you shift the energy.
Yep.
Do something to shake up the energy.
Now you got to walk right instead of left to
that's right.
Get to the easy chair. It's like
exactly.
Yeah.
Just
sure.
shift it, shake it up a bit. Just shake something up. That makes all the difference in the world.
And and the other thing too is, during this pandemic time, people dealing with it, of course, everybody's in different states, but for a lot of people, I was going to say, it'd be really interesting is find out the correlation of people in the Navy that work on submarines, because they're under the water for long periods of time. They're in a tube. They can't go over, I know they're pretty big, but they can't
pretty limited though.
Yeah. It's not like you can open the door and walk out. Right?
Not really. No.
It's like, hey, close the door. And then the other thing, a lot of people, for a lot of people, they feel that they're shut in, or at least their world has changed to the point where they feel that way. So whether they're college, which is, like you said, a pandemic proportions, the same is high schoolers, middle schoolers committing suicide at a alarming rate as well through the country. And this
absolutely
as well. And, talking about that as well. I'm like, okay, it would be interesting to, I get at the Navy. I'm just trying to draw some correlations, but understand that you have a certain routine to man and operate the submarine and shifts. But like, how do you keep from going a bit crazy? How do you keep from and I get it. We talked about self-love. And that helps a lot because it builds resiliency. There's a lot of things, exercise, diet, moving energy, but what are some, just some things that people can do. And you talked about it though, is just doing something even small,
just to shake it up.
That's completely different from what you've been doing. Like if you walk left, go right, or whatever, or clean out a closet, clean out, maybe, I don't know, go clean the interior car. I don't know. Take apart your bicycle if it's in your apartment. It's like, I don't know. Do something. It could be even very small. but like you said, I think that was great to start shaking up the energy.
It's a huge deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a good way to bring the episode to a close, because that's really the ultimate point that we need to bring people to. So well done. Did a good job there.
Well, and I just wanted to, before you close it out, Walt, I just want to remind everybody with Valentine's Day coming up that, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, we see you here at LOA today and we love you. And please find a space that you can take steps to move forward, to love yourself if you haven't already. And, and maybe be the light for somebody else. If you have,
I love it.
If you're in a space to share. So
it's a great point, because we tend to think that, well, there's not enough love to go around. Actually, there's a whole bunch of love that other people have spilled over, that's just waiting for you to be there to grab it.
Right.
You just have to get yourself into the mindset that it's there.
Yeah.
And that's what your message really gave us a great feeling of, that. Yeah, here all the way today, we do love you. I mean, that love is there to be taken. All you got to do is just grab onto it and put it to use. And once again, that means putting it to use, getting it, getting the energy shook up. Do something.
Go shake it up.
Do something. Get up.
Right.
Do the laundry. Do something.
Do something. But so you never know, that one person that needs to hear this message. Trust that that one person, or maybe many, that hear this message, that can help them, or
I think that they got it. I think they got it.
Perfect.
So thanks for sitting in for Linda this week. Appreciate it very much.
It was an honor, and I look forward to catching next week's shows with Linda. And thanks for inviting me.
And we'll be talking to you on Tuesday as well. So
yes, I'll be back with Terrific Tuesdays.
Terrific Tuesday. All right. Good thing to tune into. So thank you very much, Dean. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners as well. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Here's my light.